If you remember the early 90s for PC gaming, various titles might spring to mind. Wing Commander, Bloom, StarCon, Lemmings, Alien Breed, Civilization, Ultima 4, Euro Tycoon, SimCity. I can feel the nostalgia giving me the warm fuzzies. But how about a game made by Quicksilver and produced by Interplay in 1991? Castles. Castles is a strategy game in which you play a king trying to conquer a series of castles across northern Wales in hopes of subduing the Celts. It has its roots in historical accuracy, and about 3/4 of the manual consists of a history lesson. The premise is simple. Construct a castle by hiring workers, defend it with archers and infantry, and manage your income and food supplies. Now we're going to have to get to the basics like always. When playing, simply right-click to bring up the commands menu. From here, you can select Design, Labor, Taxes, Military, Food, and Options. Design brings you to a top-down perspective of your landscape and current castle project. Your options are displayed by pixel art, showing the available pieces to select and place. These are square towers, round towers, wall, door, and a red delete icon, allowing you to delete a placed castle piece. To place a castle piece, simply select it and choose a spot on the map and click. This is the basic for setting your castle blueprint, and you can make any design that consists of towers and adjoining walls in 90 and 45-degree angles. If you place a piece in error, simply select the delete icon and use it as needed. Labor submenu displays hire, fire, and wages. Here you can also see at a glance all 7 worker categories which are needed for proper building efficiency. You can also see if any workers are idle, listed as free, their total monthly wage requirement, your current treasury, and how efficient your workers are, ranging in categories from poor, inefficient, satisfactory, good, and excellent. By using hire or fire, you can hire all categories in units of 20 simply by clicking. Infantry and archer maximums are also affected by number of castle pieces you've placed. At base salary, the maximum starts at, I believe, 25 and can be raised up to 300. Troop maximums, unlike workers, cannot be raised by raising salaries, but it can be lowered similarly by dropping salaries below the base level. However, you might sometimes want to still raise salaries for troops because in doing so raises the recruitment speed, and that comes into play in-game. Using wages, you can view all monthly salaries. Worker salaries, including military units, are per 20 hired. Each worker has a maximum salary, the minimum always being 0. Raising salaries above defaults will raise the maximum allowable to be hired by a set amount. Similarly, dropping salaries below their defaults will reduce maximum, down to 0 for no wages. I should butt in to tell you that if you don't have enough wages to pay at the end of the month, you'll notice all your workforce and troops will quit. In my playthroughs, it didn't matter. If I was just £1 off, everybody quit. At the end of the month, if you can't cover your expenses, either manually fire people yourself or levy taxes to pay them. You don't want to be caught with your pants down. I'm dead serious. Taxes will show your current taxation level, ranging from normal, oppressive, and tyrannical, and what your yearly income will be based on this rate. Every rate increase improves yearly income, but the higher the levels, the more pissed everyone will be, barons, clergy, and the peasants alike. Also, excessive taxation has diminishing returns, so it's unwise to keep high tax rates for too many years. Excessive levies imposed on the peasants directly brings the added effect of receiving diminishing productivity and eventually strikes. The treasurer will show you your budget for the year. You pay 9 months of the year for services, as December through February are considered the winter months and nobody works. Military will let you view your current army size and how many units your archers and infantry will be divided into come invasion time. Smaller number of units will have more troops per unit. At a glance, you can also see their current wages, and the option Dig Mode is available. Click on this to have your army dig a castle's moat if it's near enough to a water source. Having diggers speeds this process up. Food will let you see your current stores. This comes into play during the winter when no one works. Without enough food, you'll notice come March 15th your workforce diminish based on how many people starve that winter. It also shows the current price of food should you need to purchase some. The best months to purchase food are end of August, September, and October. Finally, Options lets you save, load, quit, and set game speed between Labored, Steady, and Swift. Also, Council will visit your advisor, who will give you a brief summary of how well liked you are. I hope you got all that because I have a headache. Start the game. When you're about to begin, you'll be at the setup screen and you'll notice a few options. As we're going to play on the hardest difficulty, I'm setting Messengers to Nay and World to Real World. See, Messengers add story elements to the game that trigger at the end of every month. Your choices dictate the story's unfolding, and they can have various consequences. On King level difficulty, you have enough to be concerned over. I recommend Messengers on Prince and below. Choosing if you're playing real world or fantasy is largely inconsequential if you have messengers turned off. The only noticeable difference will be that ogres will attack you from time to time, and on top of normal raids by the Celts, you don't need the extra headache. There's no point in worrying over in-game speed here, as you can change it in-game. Seriously, I don't even know why they bothered to include it. Lastly, your name is also inconsequential. Just pick something that amuses you. When you finally start, right away you'll want to do a few things. First, go into Labor and just click Hire. This will allow you to begin recruiting laborers without delay. You don't want to wait on workers after you begin setting your blueprint. Now, I'll set diggers to 10, laborers to 40, and the rest 60. I know from experience, this setting will give me a workforce of good instead of satisfactory. Don't ask me how to attain excellent. I've spent over an hour digging around with numbers and I've never found the sweet spot. Next, select your first tower. Square towers are cheaper to build, but supposedly are weaker. To be honest, I don't notice that much of a delay between square or round towers when the enemy is destroying them, but I suppose any little bit you can get helps. Try to place the first piece as close to water source as you can. This will allow a moat to be built. If your castle is too far inland, you can't build a moat unless you build a line of wall linking your castle to water. Trust me, you don't need that hassle. After you find a suitable place, plop it down and begin to construct your blueprint. Oh, here, keep in mind that the game remembers your last settings on towers and wall pieces. To save lots of time later, set up your towers and walls exactly the way you want them before you place them. Towers have the option to add arrow slits, and walls can add both arrow slits and cauldrons. Cauldrons are very useful if the enemy starts bashing down your walls, but they only have a one-time use. Arrow slits supposedly give more protection to archers stationed on the walls and towers. I don't understand the benefits, but better safe than sorry, I suppose. After a few tiles are placed, you should now allocate your workforce to begin working. Yeah, I didn't cover this in the opening, but workers have to be assigned to work on towers, doors, and wall pieces. Just click on the castle piece you want built and allocate workers, up to 90. I was pulling my hair trying to figure out why my workers were sitting around with their thumbs up their ass when I had a castle to build. Also, in this first month, after placing your blueprint and continuing to assign workers as they funnel in, you should hire as many infantry and archers as you can. You should be alright with between 200 and 225 of each. Now, pay attention to the beginning of the month. On the first of the month, go into Labor and select Wages. Up the wages of your archers and infantry to max, that's 5. Then turn it back to its default, that's 2, before the end of the month. You see, here's where you start to exploit the oversimple AI. We're on King difficulty, and the game is unfair with sending in Celts to your castle into rubble. By maximizing the wages for most of the month, you improve recruitment speed of your armor tremendously. But before the end of the month rolls around, dropping the wages back to normal will let you pay normal wages and have no ill consequences. As long as you don't go below default, that's 2, you'll be fine. The mouse is very sensitive to clicks, so be careful. I'd like to note here that it's wise to build towers before your walls. Workers don't build walls up past the height of the nearest tower, and they build walls from the tower downward. It makes more sense if you imagine a long wall with only 2 towers, one at either end. If you try to assign workers to build a middle wall section before the towers are constructed, the workers will be assigned and supposedly they'll be busy, but no wall progress will be made until an adjacent wall piece is at or above their current one's height, and that one won't be built up to that height until the previous one is, etc., up to the tower. I was vexed as to why I never had any wall progress until I figured out this little gem for myself. So start work on a few towers, and then build the wall segments between them. This is also why I build towers every 3 wall segments. There are other strategies that are just as viable. I'm just giving you my personal choice. So your blueprint is already done by this point, so it's probably wise to begin and finish your moat. It delays incoming armies and costs you nothing, so get to it. You have been remembering to adjust your soldiers' wages at the beginning of every month, right? After only 4 months of the first year, my first combat ensued. In doing my little wage trick, I had 95 infantry and archers, but no matter when it occurs, all combat will play the same. Select where to place your archers and infantry, and then wait for the army to arrive. It's wise to put your archers on the other side of your moat in your castle walls and towers. Duh, right? But let me explain that archers don't move once you place them, and can't be assigned to move during combat. Also, pay attention to where you place your infantry. I've mentioned how simple the game's AI is, right? That's an understatement. It's pants on head retarded. Your troops will beeline the enemy, oblivious to obstacles in their path. This means if you place them inside your castle, they won't pathfind their way out of it to attack. They will walk stupidly into the wall, trying to rush the Celts, and fail miserably. You can individually click troops and assign them to move to one location or to attack a single target, but the hitbox on the troops is so small, and trying to manually click and move up to 10 units is nearly impossible. I also set units to 5. This allows more troops per unit, making each unit stronger. I've tried it with 10, and every time I get decimated. They're ineffective. Anyway, just wait out the combat. Oh, but a final note, always ensure your game speed is set to labored when fighting. Time still passes when engaged in combat, and no matter how fast the timeline is, your troops don't move any swifter in combat, and they don't fight any faster. Also, no work will get done while in combat. This means every time you enter a battle, it delays your building by that much. Ensure your time is slow. Don't forget, if the enemy attacks you, to make sure the first of the month doesn't roll over with your troops' wages set at max, because you'll get burned. Fortunately, during combat you can still access all the tabs to the left. Just go into wages, drop it to 2 each. Payment of the troops and workers will ensue after the first of the month like normal. Just a couple more things and we can wrap this up. End of the year and random events. End of year is simply an interlude. From December 1st to March 15th, nothing happens. You still pay full month's wages for March, however. The random events can be harmless, detrimental, or useful. The only useful one I found is a small unsurge of money. Detrimental ones consist of scaffolding collapse, which kills about 20 carpenters, or a wall segment collapse, self-explanatory. Others are up to you to determine how detrimental they are. Archers asking for upgrades to bows, carters asking for new carts. Any event asking you to pay £50 to solve the problem gives you this choice. If you say yes, you lose the money, and that's usually quite painful on this difficulty. Saying no will cause about 20 of the affected to quit, and this isn't as bad as it sounds, as naturally those spots will refill within a month. By far the worst is when rats eat your food stores. You usually can't afford to repurchase the food for the winter. This is why you save early and you save often, so you can reload if something like this occurs. This game is quite repetitive, but there is a satisfaction in completing your castle. After every section is erected, you feel a small sense of accomplishment, and a stringent loss if the enemy destroys segments. Keep in mind that while you're not on any time limit per se, battles become worse the longer it takes to construct. After about 6 years, the battle can become unmanageable. You probably won't replace your army fast enough before the enemy comes again to kill them and destroys yet another section of your castle. I constructed my castle in 6 years, and hopefully you can do likewise. Once you've built the last section of your castle, you'll be asked, is your castle finished? If you click yes, then the final battle will ensue. This will be the largest army you've had to deal with so far. I believe the maximum which will come to invade is 300 soldiers. You really don't have any other strategy other than what you've been doing all along. Simply line up your troops where they come from and hope for the best. They will get through your moat and they will start destroying your walls, but if you have a good castle built and enough troops to delay them, you won't have too much of a problem.